Okay, now I show the last game of this chapter, which is an example of how to play against the isolated queen pawn and win. The black player, is a world champion. So this example is something you really need to analyze and remember. So the game is between Szabo, white, and Petrosian, black. It was played in Bamberg in 1968. d4, knight f6, c4, and surprise, Petrosian doesn't play g6 and enter the King's Indian, for which we have this entire book, but plays e6, which is the Ninso-Indian defense. Knight c3, bishop b4, e3, the Rubinstein variation, castle, bishop d3, d5, knight f3, c5, castle, knight c6, a3, c takes d4, e takes d4. And now we have isolated pawn with d takes c4. Bishop takes c4. And now, of course, black probably wants to keep the bishop pair, and so he plays bishop e7. Here it says, having been confronted with 8a3, Petrosian has entered a risky continuation for black. We have already examined similar position in a few games, and the comparison will be useful to the reader. Well, here there is nobody reading apart me, and you guys are the watchers, or the, I don't know, lurkers, I don't know. Rook e1, and of course this is the problem of every time you play 6, but this must be developed in some way, right? So bishop d7 and bishop a2. So a logical retreat on a2, the bishop cannot be attacked by knight a5, and it can switch immediately to the other important diagonal b1 h7. Okay. Yes, so it's good that the previous video had a similar move, because we can see how the champion, Petrosian, plays against another champion, because also Szabo was a strong player of the time, right? Instead, in the previous game against this Asenfuss, honestly, I never heard of his name. While Szabo, I know that he's a strong grandmaster. So, how did the game continue here? Petrosian played rook c8, so he put the rook on the open file. Queen d3, obviously, like I told you guys, it's always the same story, you know? They want to attack h7. Rook e8, making a kind of luft. Knight e5, because if you take, this is that the defender of h7 goes away, you can actually start to attack there, right? And here it says, at this point, it seems better to develop the queen side. Let's see. g6. And here white played bishop g5. In the note it says maybe it's better to play bishop h6. As you can see, g6 is made to blunt this idea, right? Okay, so if you are black in this position, because there is a diagram, what would you play? Obviously, I don't want to show you guys, and I want you to pause the video, think at least 3 minutes, and find out what is the black move. Petrosian played knight h5. Here it says black chooses the proper moment for this move. White was finishing his preparation for the breakthrough in the center, so he was going there. But black succeeds in diminishing the pressure. His move reminds us of Karpov's reaction in one of his match games versus Korchnoi. And I have this game that he mentioned. I didn't show it because it's kind of long, but probably I will show it. This simplifying move is characteristic of many positions in the Queen's Gambit, and it is useful to remember it. So this game, Szabo versus Petrosian, is something that you must memorize. Why? Because the maneuver made by Petrosian and the ideas behind the moves are what will serve you for a lifetime of chess. Okay? Let's continue. Bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and knight c4. Here there is a note in case he would have played this, d5, he would have continued with knight takes e5, rook takes e5, and queen d6 with equality. Okay, so that's it. So he played knight c4, and once more, guys, I think you need to pause the video because the next move is maybe difficult to find, and you need to think at least 3 minutes. I don't know, guys, I mentioned it to you. I generally use one of these things, turn it, and I really think at least 3 minutes. Why 3 minutes? Because it's the amount of time that you would have in a classical game today. And if you start to do this consistently, you will also learn time management, right? Okay, so what did black play? b5. Can you imagine? Great move, right? Why it's a great move? If he plays knight takes b5, black will play knight b4, attacking this and this. Okay, notice that b4 is controlled by the queen, and b5 can be taken back, and then of course there is the rook also on the c5. So I don't know if you saw it well. Let me show you. Knight takes b5, boom. So when you takes back, this is pin, it starts to become a mess, right? So okay, so he doesn't play knight takes b5. He plays what? He plays knight e3. But once you play knight e3, oops, b4, knight e4, and then there is knight f6. Petrosian does not miss a single chance. The exchange of knights would alleviate difficulties in the center. So, guys, let's remember that Petrosian is fighting against the isolated pawn. Knight c4, rook c, d8. So it's really starting to pile up against the pawn d4. Here, white made a mistake. He should have played knight e d6, and instead he played knight takes f6. So why is knight takes f6 is a mistake? right? Because you say, but it didn't really lose material. You are totally correct. It didn't lose material, but in this case, white has a kind of advantage of space, and black is tied up. Exchanging pieces advantages black because he is not tied up anymore. Queen takes f6. And knight d6. Rook e7. And this will keep the rook in the play. Rook a d1. And bishop e8. Now, white plays knight takes e8. But if you can imagine, this bishop wasn't really a strong one, while that knight, that unfortunately didn't have support and couldn't stay there, was better placed, right? But between a bishop that has, you understand what, two squares, 1 and 2, and the knight that has 8, you understand that the knight is better, right? So to exchange this knight is clearly a win for black, because black is gaining something out of it. He is gaining activity, activity that it takes away from the opponent, okay? And the lesser pieces there are on the board, the better it is for black, right? And here it says the fog has lifted, the isolated pawn remains under pressure and it cannot move. Queen a6, knight takes d4, and queen takes a7. Here there is a long note about a takes b4 that doesn't help white. Don't believe me? Buy the book and read the note. Queen takes a7, or eventually do your own analysis. It's like 4 moves long. And he plays an interesting move after queen takes a7. He plays b3. Bishop b1 and knight c2. Rook takes d8. Rook takes d8. Rook f1 and queen takes b2. At this point you guys, I think, understand who is better and how do you evaluate the position. I mean, this is a pass pawn, right? But it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares from promotion. This is a pass pawn that is 2 squares from promotion. I think the situation is clear, right? This rook is in a sense more active. This rook is just protecting f2 and the 4th rank. So now, obviously, black just need to find the winning moves. Okay, here it says, by skillfully defending a passive position and making use of white's little inconsistencies, Petrosian has slowly turned the position to his advantage. The far advanced pass pawn guarantees victory. Okay, so let's see, after queen takes b2, there is queen b6, attacking the rook and trying to take control of this. Rook d5, so it protects the rook. a4, queen c3, beautiful move because it keeps control of the 5. And obviously also white plays a nice move, which is h3, creating a luft for his king if something goes bad, right? King g7, g3, and rook a5, fighting against this, right? h4, rook takes a4, h5, g takes h5. And now white tries a last shot, which is queen d8, but Petrosian defends immediately with h6. And the game is over. Here he says the skill demonstrated by Petrosian in defense is worth analyzing in detail. And guys, here this is the end of a chapter, after we go to isolated pawn couples. So he gives some general observations. He says, studying this short selection of games, we have learned what an uncertain life an isolated pawn leads. The center, characterized by such a pawn formation, therefore requires sober evaluation and most careful treatment. The position is so sensitive that even small errors, which may be imperceptible to an inexperienced eye, cause great difficulties. At the same time, the reader must have become aware of the fact that each of these central situations, no matter how similar they may seem, is different. So I think the author is telling us that we need to watch a lot of games about the isolated queen pawn in order to understand what works and what not. In the time this book was written, that I think it was when, here it says in 2000, then it was reprinted in 2001, 2005 and 2009, perfect. So in 2000 maybe not many people own ChessBase. Today I think ChessBase can give you the chance to immediately see 1000 isolated queen pawn games, because I think there are some kind of query search of a database with different pawn structures. And so the isolated queen pawn is one of the most common. And so what one should do if he's a young person interested in learning, he must learn about this pawn structure, and he must watch a lot of games. And so my idea would be, I got it. I remember that I got, I think, ChessBase 12. Now we are, I think, at 17 or 18. And the amount of game that it had, also in the basic version, maybe was 1 million. And believe me, when you do a query and it comes out with 10,000 games, you will never be able to see them all, right? And probably it's enough that you see 100 of them, and 100 will give you most of the situations and understand everything. Here it says, a pawn advance on the wing or one piece placed at a different position can change everything. Strict, constantly valid rules how to play this position remain, therefore out of reach, no matter how many examples we examine. However, the reader must also have noticed that some general guidance can be applied, covering a very large number of possible cases. These general maxims are the only direction we can depend upon. If we absorb them by studying typical cases, if they are a fruit of our analytical work, all the better. So, in order to formulate some general advice we can trust, we start from our simple practical observation. Okay, I don't know, guys, if you want to listen to the rest, probably not. I hope so, that you have something better to do with your lives than listening to me. Eventually try to get the book, because to me it seems a very good guide to pawn structures. Then, of course, there are also other books on pawn structures. Let's try to finish this and then go to the next. Thank you very much for watching. and see you next time.